So we've come to the end of our course. This is our final class. I'm going to go over darts, pleats, tucks. I'm going to talk about grain lines and how to label a pattern correctly. So let's get to work. Okay, by now we are familiar with a dart. These are the legs of the dart, vanishing point, apex. When we stitch the legs closed, we end up with a dart. But if we only fold the fabric over like this and stitch only in the seam, like this for example, this is a pleat. So I have not sewn the legs together, I've left it open. This is a pleat. I've only sewn right here. And if I only sew down to a certain point, let's say I only sew the legs to a certain point like here, this is known as a tuck. So a dart, a pleat, and a tuck is drafted the same way, but it's how it is sewn that determines if it's a dart or a pleat or a tuck. Okay, let's talk about grain lines. Let's pretend this is a roll of fabric. I pull out the fabric. This is known as the length grain of the fabric. This is known as the cross grain of the fabric. There's also a third grain line, which is known as the bias at a 45-degree angle. And the edge of the fabric is known as selvage. Okay, I've made this cute little pattern here. And I've drawn a grain line. I've labeled it grain line. This line right here, which is parallel to center front. And the purpose of a grain line is to tell us how to place the pattern onto the fabric. You see, without a grain line, we have no idea how to place this pattern onto this fabric. This way, this way, this way. But with a grain line, the grain line is always parallel to the selvage. So it goes like this, not like this, not like this, but it's always parallel to the selvage. Which brings us to our next topic, which is labeling patterns. What information do we put on these patterns? The first thing we do is we put a grain line. The grain line is always, well not always, most of the time, is parallel to center front. You don't have to write grain line on it. It's sort of, it's a given. It's understood that if you see a grain line like that with a little arrow at the top and the bottom, that's a grain line. Next, we write what is known as the pattern ID, identification. In other words, is it a front? Is it a back? Is it a sleeve? Is it a cuff? Is it a waistband? What is it? In this case, it's a front, so I've labeled it front. Next, we write the size. What size is this pattern? I've draped this pattern from a muslin on a size 4. Next is the cut amount, and we circle the cut amount, meaning how many pieces do we cut? If you have a sleeve, you have 2 sleeves, you cut 2. If you have a collar, it's only 1 piece collar, you cut 1. So all this information must be written on the pattern. Each pattern piece must be labeled. Okay, so we are done with this course. I hope you've learned a few things about pattern making. It takes a lot of time and practice to really master pattern making. There's so many things to learn. This was a very basic class. It's the tip of the iceberg. It's a lot more to learn. Please email me with questions. I answer all my emails. So until we meet again, have fun, be creative, and I will see you on the runway. Cheers.